What is going on, everybody? I am Cory, and I am joined by my co-host, Michael Nadalin, for another episode of PPC Unfiltered. Michael, how are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. It is, Friday morning for you there?
Yes, nice 8:33 a.m. and I'm presuming it's 5:33 p.m. for you.
Yes, sir. Wrapping up the day. It's been a fun week. Rolling into the weekend soon. Excited about it. So, Michael, for today's call, we're going to talk about seasonality. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to just preface by saying seasonality. What is it? How do we define it in the PPC realm? It does not mean winter, fall, or autumn, summer, spring. It is not that. That's not what we mean. There's going to be fiscal year seasonality. This is more important for B2B B2B lead gen type of accounts, things like that. But there's also just seasonality around, it might be like the summer months plus or minus a month or two. There is, generally speaking, going to be some seasonality in your account. You might not believe it. You might think, there's no season. I hear this all the time. There's no seasonality in my account. And then I look at the graphs and I look at year-over-year data, and clearly October sucks. Every single year. That's seasonality, ladies and gentlemen, whether you like to believe it or not. So, Michael, any initial thoughts or things that you think we need to define around seasonality?
No, mate, I think the main definition is seasonality in terms of business seasonality, not like weather seasonality or like the seasons of what a normal human would presume. So, yeah, it's really important to understand that this happens on an e-commerce level, which is more obvious. People are like, oh yeah, Christmas and Black Friday, Cyber Monday, November, and they get that. But there's also lulls that come throughout the year that I would love you to speak about. And then we can both also chat about the lead generation side. But in terms of lead generation, it depends on industry. So that's the other thing as well. So there's like it's more on the B2B, B2C lead gen based on the industry seasonality, and then the e-commerce, depending on what even industry they're in, the seasonality there. So I know you brought up this topic based on the last call, so I'm going to let you just unleash. So let's do it. I'm going to sit back and listen to you just like open the fire hose, mate.
All right, guys. So there's some really fun stuff here. I will say I never, ever look at an account, whether it's I'm auditing an account, whether I'm consulting on a brand new account or an existing account, and I drive some of my clients crazy because they're like, all right, I got to talk about that again. I'm always asking about seasonality. What do we expect next month? What did we expect from last month when we were looking at pre and post changes made in the account, strategic changes, things we're planning, whatever it is? It is so, so vital to talk about that, along with inventory changes, along with pricing, promotional website changes, tracking changes, whatever it is. Seasonality is a main core component. It's a main pillar in your strategy and when you're doing the data analysis process, when you're looking for optimization opportunities in the account. So, for example, let's say we look at year-over-year data, and we're looking at, let's say we're looking at the past 3 years of data, and you are assuming there's no seasonality in the account. You know, it's pretty much conversions or sales, whatever it is, leads are pretty stable throughout the year. Usually what I'm going to start looking for is there any outliers? Is there any exceptions to that rule, right? We might find, as I mentioned jokingly earlier, that conversion rates, for example, drop, 20, 30% on average in October, probably because consumer behavior sort of lowers in interest for buying things in October because they want to wait, because they know there's going to be deals more than likely come November. There's also a really fun element people never talk about, which is competitive seasonality. This is a very PPC specific topic. Look at your CPCs throughout the year. Really check. This is something really missed often. Do CPCs start getting dramatically more expensive in certain times of the year? You might be surprised. It might be that only certain products CPCs start going up, or certain service offerings in certain locations start going up in certain times of the year. Now, be careful with this. If you don't have a lot of competitors in the ad auction, you might get thrown off because it could have just been they switched on a more aggressive bidding strategy, or they went to manual CPC for a bit, and it looks like there's some seasonality there. Make sure you're looking at multiple years of data before just jumping to any major conclusions on CPC or CPM. major outliers. But these are the things that you start looking for. Is there outliers in the data around certain months of the year, or certain quarters of the year, or fiscal quarters of the year? Maybe it's the start of a new year. You notice that there's drop-offs or major increases in search term interest, which you can easily monitor for free with Google Trends. That is something, again, very underutilized to see if there's any expectations around search volume increases. And also note that inside the Google Ads interface, in the Insights section, Google will give you some seasonality expectations. They'll even put that in the notifications bar. I know most of us are used to just kind of exiting out of the notifications, like, get this out of the way. But sometimes it'll actually give you some insights into seasonality. Now, for a lot of businesses, they'll be way too broad, way too generic. Like, you sell jewelry and it's just like the generic jewelry, luxury item space. And that might not be very important for you, but just take a look, browse. Maybe there's something in there that'll surprise you. What Google is trying to do with that is obviously try to get you to spend a little bit more for those products or services within your offerings. But it's also trying to get you to ramp up some of your spend as well as your bidding strategies to capture some of that additional interest. So definitely very important to be considering seasonality. Make sure that you're always taking that into account when you are monitoring changes in performance. So let's say you made major strategic changes or campaign level, account level changes in your account. Let's say you've added a bunch of keywords, a change of bid strategy, dramatically changed budgets 30 days ago. Be careful to not just to look at that and say, oh, it looks like CPCs are way up, CPMs are way up, conversions are way down. It's because of that change that we made. It might not be. You got to remember seasonality, very, very important element to consider.
Dude, that is amazing. And as you're saying that, I was reflecting on a lot of clients that we work with, and because you listen to people say stuff and then you go into your own experience and then channel that through. And that stuff is so amazing. But most clients I work with do not have years worth of data. That's the thing. And then even if they do have years worth of data, they've had multiple people managing it over that time. So there's the time element times by who's managing it, which means different strategies. And then just, it's not like most of these companies have been running it for 3 years with the same person who's operating the top 10% of specialists. Usually they're oscillating. So what do you do to mitigate that in terms of the data? Because I know for me, I'll actually ask clients, you can look at their back end data of their actual sales performance, but pulling it back to the advertising is reflective of seasonality, but also of who's managing it as well. So yes. The management might actually make it perform really poorly in a peak season, or the management might actually make, what we have is a lot of the times when we take accounts, we get their best results in their lower season because proper management can outperform horrible management in a peak season. So what are your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, that is a very challenging part of the data analysis and auditing process when clients want to go deep on these things. So when we are looking into seasonality insights, we have to try to clean the data as best we can so that we are removing some of the outliers, that we are comparing similar data segments. So for example, don't just look at CPC's account wide, because that's going to include probably branded search, display, remarketing, outbound, or kind of the non-branded search sites. Be very careful not to do that. Compare similar segments. When you're taking things at aggregate, you want to be looking at, okay, if we've run PMAX for the last year, you're probably not going to have a lot of year-over-year seasonality, obviously. But when you're looking at non-branded search, don't compare that to all search campaigns. Compare it to similar non-branded search campaigns. Obviously, the products that you're promoting inside of those will also vary some of the CPCs. So there, you can imagine there's a million intricacies here. Sometimes we have to get as granular as looking at the search terms and bucketing those things into certain groupings so that we're only comparing similar groups of search terms to others when we're looking for seasonality insights. Then we dig into, as you mentioned, the change history. And oh man, is that fun. So we have to try with our experience, and this is really tough for new people who don't have a lot of experience in PPC. We have to start analyzing, okay, have CPC's Google Ads wide varied a lot over the time period I'm looking at, for just in general, because Google Ads is becoming more competitive. Then we have to consider the industry. Is the industry generally more expensive? And does that vary by certain months? That's obviously something we're looking into at that point. But then to your point, we're also looking at what were the bid strategies that were utilized in that time period. Do we expect those to be lower or higher considering the bid strategy that's utilized? Was it manual CPC, right? Was it target return on ad spend, whatever it was? How much ad spend was being allocated, right? That also is going to have a factor, especially in automated bidding. So there's a ton of stuff. You also have to consider ad types that are utilized because, for example, comparing a responsive search ad CPC to an expanded text ad or just an old school text ad, those CPCs might vary a little bit. So those are all the millions of things you have to consider if you want to get that granular. Most people probably won't get to that level, but still the point it is still there. You know, there is going to be some ugliness in the data. Do try to remove outliers so that you can find a nice medium balance between what's normal in the account over certain periods of the month, but definitely a lot to consider. There are lots to kind of unpack.
Dude, amazing. And I think everyone's doomed to fail then, based on what you've said. No, man, what I've recognized is it seems like you need to have someone, when you work with someone who's taking on your strategy, like your account, you've got to make sure that they're the right person. They've got years and years of experience and you plan to be with them for a long time, not just doing like a 3, 6, 12-month contract. Because if you are trying to look at seasonal impacts on your industry, like Google Ads is probably the most powerful market insight tool because people are proactively looking for your product or service. You can see how many people are searching. You can see impressions. You can see impression share, so what percentage of the time you're showing, what actual terms people are coming in for. So that is such a powerful market tool that if you've got the right person managing it, plus this market research, like insight, like masterpiece, you can actually start to then like see seasonality truthfully. But most people, they're trying to look at the sun and it's just clouds everywhere. Like the clouds is poor management, poor setup, poor settings, poor like keywords not put in the right campaigns, like match types incorrect. So then like they're just getting incorrect search terms. So then you might be paying a high cost per click for a super irrelevant term. So like the quality of the traffic's poor, the quality of the setup's poor. So it seems like the best way to go about this is actually have someone set it up properly, work with someone who's amazing, who has a good account and campaign setup and structure. That way, when you come to doing 3, 6, 12-month reports and look at seasonality, you know the data is as clean, as pure as possible. I don't think it should ever be a solution where someone has to come to someone like you, who's like a world expert, and your solution is, let's dive through all this crazy data. It shouldn't be at that point. If you're having to be hired, like you should be hired to just like, you've got a good account, let me do my thing and we'll make it better. Most of the time people are like, I've got all of this mess. You figure it out, Corey. You figure it out, Michael. And it's like, no, like this is your business. This is your problem. Like you'll come to us for assistance. But a lot of the times, all of these seasonality factors can be clearly defined, really clearly seen if the account's set up properly, if conversion tracking set up properly. You've got good negative keywords, you've got good settings. And by just doing good segmentation as well, you actually see seasonality properly and you can take advantage of it. I guarantee you, 99% of people who are either watching this or the accounts will see, they won't be able to capture seasonality, like the real data of it, or take advantage of it purely based on how the account's being run, who it's run by, and how it's set up as well. So that's my kind of 2 cents on it. And it kind of comes back to my full approach of conversion tracking, search terms, setup, and who's managing it being the most critical factors for success. That when things like seasonality happen, or a new product launch, or the business changes, or the business wants to grow, the data's in your face there. You're not having to guess. You're not having to deep dive through stuff and then make guesses rather than knowing the actual data as well. So that's my part just in general. In terms of lead generation, I know you would like it's blended between e-commerce and lead generation. There's definitely signs of seasonality. And it's kind of, there's also counter seasonality I've noticed as well. So the first counter seasonality is pretty much businesses go on break during Christmas. You know, if you're in a Western country and they still follow like the Catholic or Christian traditions or holidays, and, you know, people are not at business, but people are still searching. So whilst they think internally, oh, it's quiet for us because we're not working with, therefore we're not getting sales, people are still proactively searching. People still have free time. People are still working on their holidays, looking for a solution to their problem. And it might only be the first touch point of their journey, but it's not like they're buying in that month of December and Jan, but they might be starting that journey, and cost per clicks may be lower because all your competitors are like, yeah, we're off, no one's going to answer the phones. We can't get back to the lead. So then competition's down. So there's, when it should be a lull season or like a quiet season, there's opportunities in there as well, because there's so many ways you can capture leads and people proactively, like people are looking regardless. Like just because you're not working and your industry is off, it doesn't mean like people are just like, that blanks out a part of their mind going, oh, I didn't know I needed PPC services.
Yeah.
People still search. People are still aware. And I find that a lot of our clients who still run ads over the Christmas break get outstanding results, and it actually sets them up in a really powerful position for the next calendar year, because they've got all these leads, like a higher volume, cheaper cost, and people who are more in that just starting my journey mode. And then when they come back in Jan and Feb, they start ramping them up. So there's not just like a quietness in December and then you're waiting till March or like later on to start getting sales. You can start getting sales in January and February as well. So that's kind of like a seasonality, but I'll let you jump in because I can see you want to.
Yeah, because there was something I really want to highlight for the viewers. Cheaper cost. That's so important. Like, if any people who like to buy stocks, this will be really obvious to you, right? When the prices are down, that's when you should be, funneling money into your stock investments, right? Because it's going to be cheaper than it's going to be at any other time. This also plays a part in PPC. I see this all the time, and this was a perfect example that you just eliminated in the like post-Christmas months in the Western countries. A lot of advertisers pull their spend, which makes sense, right? But now you are missing out on, probably because everyone else is doing the same thing, probably the cheapest CPCs you're going to see all year. This can mean higher return on investment for your remarketing come January. And guess what? Now you have a warmed up audience that nobody else has in your market to be able to remarket to those people. You got site visitors when everyone else was assuming nobody was browsing. But guys, how many of you, like around Christmas, relatives are around, or like you're just kind of bored and you're off of work and you're browsing the internet? Well, you don't go to e-commerce sites. You don't look for services. Of course you are. Like, you might not be ready to buy right then and there, but you've got gift cards to use. I mean, this is a good time to look for people, guys. Like, this is a good time to warm up an audience. It doesn't mean you need to be super aggressive. It doesn't mean you should be offering like, major promotions or, anything like that. But it is a good time. It's a very cheap time to do some advertising. So don't miss out on that opportunity. And honestly, Michael, I've got so many thoughts on seasonality. I'm such a nerd about this. I love this topic. I think a lot of people ask, where do I look for seasonality in my account? And we've talked about some of that. But I also would like to say more specifically, and you've mentioned search terms, that's really key. This sounds a little more advanced, but if you guys can ever do what's called an n-gram analysis, essentially you're breaking down the performance at aggregate of individual words in groupings of words, 2 words at a time, 3 words at a time. You're looking at click-through rates, CPCs, return on ad spend, et cetera, at the grouping of word level, and rather than individual search terms. Sounds complex. It's actually pretty simple with a free Brainlab script that was made forever ago. You also want to find seasonality within those groupings of words. Additionally, any kind of demographic information, you might be surprised that you might find that certain age groups, the conversion rates skyrocket only during certain times of the year. This is great for customizing your marketing messaging and this is omnichannel, whether it's on Facebook, whether it is through your email marketing, knowing that this 18 to 24-year-old group doesn't normally buy at a high clip from us, but for whatever weird reason, they buy these certain products or sign up for these particular services around the summer months. Maybe there's something related to college buying in there that you didn't even think about. That's an opportunity in the market. So also look for that. There's income. Sometimes you'll find household income, though it's not as trustworthy of a data level that we'd like to think it is. Regardless, if you find an outlier in your data at any level of segmentation, make sure you're trying to look for those opportunities and capitalizing on those via, as I always talk about, budgeting, bidding differently, targeting differently, etc.
There's 2 things I want to add to that, if I could take the mic off you, mate. Is a lot of bringing this to the simplicity and practicality, the old Pareto's principle, 80-20, all that, everyone knows it, but it really comes to how can you implement it. So most accounts will really have probably 10, like if it's a smaller, like a big account, it could probably be like 10, 20 keywords that are like the actual high volume generating of leads. What you could simply do is go into that keyword and just like, you can do this in the interface and just do a filter. So you're just only showing that keyword and do on the graph impressions per month. And then maybe your impression share or cost per click or cost. Or you could just export the data itself by month and look at that individual keyword, what's its impressions were, so how many people were searching that month, what your impression share was, because impressions and impression share may be like crossover. You might have lower impressions, but then your impression share was super low versus it being high. How much you spent on it and your cost per click on that keyword. If you just do that report for like your top 2, 5, 10, 20 keywords, like you wouldn't have to do more. That's where you can actually start to see these seasonality insights, because there will be what I call money keywords in your account. This is really more on the lead gen side, where there's just like a term. Not only do you know it logically, like, oh, if someone searches this, I want to show for it. The data's in your accounts. Plus, based on our last call about ROI, if you know that these keywords make you money, you can be like, this keyword, every time I get a lead, it costs me $150, but then it's a 10-to-1 sale. So like its cost per sale is $1,500, but I make 50 grand off it. Then you start looking back on, okay, is there seasonality with this keyword? What were my impressions, impression share, cost, and cost per click? So that's the first bit. The other one, rewinding a bit, just to that seasonality factor or the counter seasonality, as I've just coined myself, is with these times when cost per clicks are good, even matching up with what I just said, you will have money keywords in your account that no matter what time of year is, someone's searching for that, they have an intent to take action either now or very soon. In these times, let's just say the cost per click is $10. In these lull times, your cost per click might drop down to $8. So you're doing a 20% saving. So within that 20%, $8, so 10 to 8 is 20% down, but $8 to $10 is 25% difference. So within a 20% saving, in that same time frame, you could potentially get 25% more leads. Same quality of traffic, just because the market, the shares of the market, which is the click cost or the search terms, are cheaper. You should be investing more when it's cheaper. You should be investing more when the times are low. Firstly, competitors are not showing, which means not only click cost is cheaper, there's less noise. Like someone else might have a better offer than you, or even a better business. But visibility equals profitability. So if they're not visible to those people either, their offer's not even going to be in their face. It's just like you and maybe 2 competitors versus 4. Like their offer or their ad, even if some people click on all the ads, cheaper traffic, less competition, less visibility by them. And then by whatever savings, there's a higher percentage that you can gain from leads than your savings as well. So I'm telling this to all my clients. I'm going to send this video to our clients because it's really important to understand people still look. People are people. They don't stop looking. They're on their phones at 2 a.m. in the morning. They're at their phones at work looking for stuff for themselves personally or stuff for their business. And a lot of the time, the people who you actually want to buy from you, people with money, they only search late at night when they're not working because they make money, or when they're on holidays because they still work. So even when people, like I know over this Christmas break, I'm still going to be working because I run an agency. Like I don't have all this free time, just like only at 6 p.m. I look, it's like, okay, when I get a bit more time during the Christmas break, I'm going to be doing a bit more planning. There's a lot of people doing that. And I can say that confidently from someone running a successful business and just from the results and data I see with my clients as well, mate. So look, conscious of the time, was there anything else you wanted to touch on, mate? I feel like this has been actually a great conversation because it's more than just the seasonality of like the seasons outside or even business, but it's also the opportunities in seasonality when businesses should be quiet. You can actually grow through them as well.
Yeah, 100%. I'm gonna rapid fire for the sake of time, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, let's do it, mate. Get those dot points in.
Bear with me. I've got to get these points, guys. I think they're so vital. So this is especially important for lead gen, but it can also be important for some e-com businesses. Setting up expectations for performance, and then crafting a budgeting strategy around that. Some clients that I work with, they have a set amount per year, not per month, rather than do what they've been doing, which is to say we have $20,000 per month spent on Google Ads and spending that evenly throughout the year. Don't do that. There is clear seasonality, and you see that 20% of all of your leads come from 3 months of the year, or rather 50% of your leads come from 3 months of the year. Don't spend the same amount on ads those 3 months as you will on those other months of the year. So consider budgeting allocations by some of those seasonality insights. So if you see really good months, you probably want to be spending more during those times. If you see that CPCs tend to go up, and that's a signal of intent, of commercial intent, you probably want to be spending a little bit more during those months so you can stay competitive in those months. So budgeting based on seasonality can be really a huge, huge needle moving strategy for some businesses. Make sure you're utilizing custom labels if seasonality is a really big part of your business for certain departments or product segments. So in other words, in your product feed, your Google Merchant Center, et cetera, make sure you're utilizing your custom labels for seasonality insights. If you know that certain products are really hot in the summer seasons, put that in a custom label. Maybe it's your custom label for you're not utilizing. Those are summer season items, whatever it is. Also make sure that you're considering interweek seasonality. So this is something that sounds really advanced, but essentially you might see that there's different performance behavior on weekends versus weekdays. I see a lot of lead gen clients that turn off their ads on the weekends because they're not open. And to Michael's point, doesn't mean that your customers aren't browsing. They might not be buying on the weekends, but it doesn't mean you don't want to not hit those people on the weekends, because if you're a local HVAC, you're only open, I don't know, for whatever reason, Monday through Fridays only, because you don't take calls on the weekends. They would be pretty dumb, actually, to not have ads on the weekends, especially if your competitors are thinking on that baseline level as well. Guess what? Now you can show up, show those HVAC ads. You might not be available to take the call, but yeah, they can leave a voicemail. They can fill out a lead form. You can contact them first thing on Monday if you have those outreach limitations. So do consider those interweek seasonalities when you're looking at outliers in performance. I probably would not default to shutting off the weekends unless you have clearly identified through data analysis that is a very unprofitable time where you just never really get leads, even when you've turned them off and on, you've experimented with it. Last couple points on most of the most important metrics to look at with seasonality: average order values. See if those vary during certain parts of the year. That can also direct some of your strategies. My favorite metric of all, I don't know about you, Michael, but mine is VPC, value per click. It is so important. And whether that's for e-com or lead gen, that's tracking conversion values. What is the average conversion value or revenue of a purchase? We can also monitor that through different parts of the year. Huge metric to track.
Sorry, just interrupt you. I love that. So based in the last video when I was talking about getting that data for lead generation and knowing like what your return on ad spend is per lead, I love knowing like the revenue per click, or like the value per click, and then even the profit per click, or so I just wanted to interrupt you because I do love that. I love that.
Yes, it's huge. So guys, those are really important ones. Average order value, VPC, click-through rates are a little bit more unreliable, so I wouldn't weigh those too heavily. You might look at that on like an Ngram or search term level, maybe an ad group level, etc. But click-through rates vary by a lot of things that you guys do in the accounts, guys. So be careful with that. It's also true of CPCs. That's what Michael was pointing out earlier. Those are going to vary based on strategies, bid strategies, how much you're spending, things you're targeting, etc. How many negatives you've added, blah, blah, blah. But those are all still things you're going to be checking for. CPMs, those are also going to be something you're looking at. There's a million metrics out there, guys. I just wanted to highlight a few of the ones you're generally going to be looking for when you're evaluating seasonality in your account. And I think that'll do it. Michael, any other last minute thoughts?
Right. Let's wrap it up, because if we don't wrap it up now, we'll be on the call for another hour talking about it. So this is what happens. Our brains are just so full of this stuff from so much experience that like you say something, it's like, boom, I've got this other thing from my experience. So, mate, there are other things, but we're not going to say them right now. So, Cory, thank you for all the wisdom you just shared. Tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, guys, you can find me on LinkedIn, just by my name, and on YouTube. Have a new channel over there as well.
Nice. And I'm on LinkedIn, Michael Nadlin, marketlead.com.au, and MarketLead on YouTube as well. So, Cory, mate, wonderful chatting once again, mate.
Always. All right, brother.
See you, mate. Have a great day.
Take it easy. Bye.